is concerned, their response to the coronavirus has been held up as an example of a successful containment strategy. Joining us is Professor Dale Fisher. He is chair of the World Health Organization's Global Outbreak Alert and Response Network. He joins us from Singapore. Hello to you, Professor. Thanks for joining us. As I said, you're in Singapore right now. The response to the coronavirus there has been held by many a model to the world. Why do you think that is? What are you doing differently that others didn't?
Thanks for having me. I guess the first thing we did was in terms of preparedness and readiness. For some years now, indeed since SARS, we've been strategically working out how what we would do if this day happened. So there has been some infrastructure developed and legislation, things like this, all put in place for this time. From the moment we heard what was happening on December 31st, we were already activating. So all through January and February, we were getting everything in place, the different tiers of how we would implement as cases rose. So I think the readiness activities through January, February were very important. We had our tests ramped up before that we even had a first case on January 23rd. And we've been very focused on the virus. We work very hard to detect cases. We test them readily. They're all isolated in hospital, so that there's no risk of them being out in community spreading further. There's thorough contact tracing, which springs into action as soon as the case is identified, and any close contact is put in quarantine, home quarantine, and obviously that's very strictly monitored. So with this, we've been able to have a very flat curve. Indeed, most of our cases are imported.
Could the World Health Organization have done more to get other countries to take this more seriously?
I don't believe so. I think it was declared a fake on January the 30th. We went on the mission through February, and we made it very clear to the world that this virus can have devastating health, social, and economic impact. But we also said in that report that we doubted whether the world had the capacity or the mindset to deal with it. And sadly, that's true, except for a handful of Asian countries which did have that capacity and mindset to take aggressive actions fast.
Although interestingly, you didn't close schools in Singapore, did you?
No. Children don't get severe disease by and large. There's no evidence that they amplify disease and spread it. In fact, in general, in China, we found that most children that were infected were actually innocent bystanders, if you like, in a family cluster. Many were asymptomatic even.
What are we wrong in the United Kingdom as far as home isolation is concerned?
I think it's a good question, because it is time to look forward. The current situation is what it is, and there's many cases, and I think it's really time to reboot the whole approach. It's easy to, well, I won't say it's easy, but it's what most countries are doing, which is just closing things and introducing sort of broad social restrictions on people. But I would really like to see more of a focus on the virus, on identification, on isolating of cases, of quarantining contacts, rather than quarantining the whole of society. Work on the people with the virus, or the people that might have the virus, and we keep them in hospital until their throat swab is negative before releasing them. And that's also done in Korea, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Korea, of course, had a large outbreak and didn't have to have a lockdown. They just really concentrated on this isolation, detection, and quarantining of contacts.
But to that end, Korea, Singapore have got the test kits, and we haven't.
that would make it more difficult.
Most certainly. And as far as quarantining people are concerned, apparently you have a scheme in Singapore where people were texted twice a day and they needed to be at home when those texts came through to absolutely make sure that there's no chance that people can be outside if they are in quarantine or they do have COVID-19. Good idea?
I can tell you from personal experience, I received those texts after the China mission, and they're a little bit scary when you get them. And I was very pleased that I was home. I wasn't tempted to not be home, but it's a criminal offence to breach quarantine.
Where are we, do you think, Professor, in this pandemic?
Well, a fraction of 1%, maybe 0.1% in Italy, for instance, have been infected. So the vast majority of the population remains non-immune. So all countries need to be in this for the long haul, because I think without a vaccine or a treatment, we're going to be doing this, for a year plus.
Okay, Professor, well, I'm glad to see that you are well. Thank you for taking the time to join us on the programme this morning. Thank you.